Fire-Breathing Kittens presents How to Play Reesus Epic. This is a Fire-Breathing Kittens original little long play record, and I am your story reader. I'm going to begin now to read to you How to Play Reesus Epic. You can read along with me in your book. You will know it is time to turn the page when the little kitten breathes fire, like this. Let's begin now. Reesus Epic by Colin McIntyre is an extension of the TTRPG Reesus, the Anything RPG. The core element of cliches and heavy roleplay remain at the center of gameplay, but Reesus Epic adds the familiar fun of rolling more dice than its predecessor. We all love rolling dice, don't we? You can find Reesus Epic at the website www.resusiverse.com/home/optional-rules/Reesus-epic and Resusiverse, or Resusiverse, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, is spelled Risusiverse. The whole point of this game is to have fun. In fact, Reesus is the Latin word for laugh, which would lead one to believe that Reesus Epic should, by definition, be filled with epic laughter. Get creative with your choices and go for it. To begin, I will outline these four main concepts: cliches, building your character, challenges, and advancing your character. With these ideas grasped, you, too, can grab a group of friends and participate in a story full of twists, turns, murder, mayhem, wrestling, spelunking, complex equations, criticism of 19th century French poetry, and/or timed cooking competitions. The possibilities are as many as your imagination permits. Part 1. Cliches. Cliches are effectively the essence of your character. Who are they? How would you describe them and their role in the universe? Let's take an example using Lieutenant Commander Scotty Montgomery, a well-known space engineer from the 1960s space epic Star Trek. Scotty would have cliches like put upon and miracle-working chief engineer, a high-ranking yet down-to-earth, no pun intended, military officer, and a true Scot that gives it all he's got. By defining Scotty this way instead of focus traits like strength, dexterity, etc., we get a better idea of who he is and what he can do in a multitude of situations. The cliches are his stats. So each of these cliches will get associated dice when we get to character creation. Unlike many other TTRPGs, the ideal outcome of any roll is 1. The lower the roll, the better. So how does that work with cliches? A character's ability to do anything related to their cliche has to do with their die size. A D20 represents completely untrained in that aspect, while a D2 would be considered
the greatest of all time.
Every advance in a cliché decreases the size of the die and thereby increases the probability of getting a lower number. The list of dice and their corresponding level of acumen is as follows. D20 is untrained, D16 is beginner, D12 average, D10 skilled, D8 expert, D6 master, D4 legend, and D2 the GOAT. Note that there does exist a situation where cliches will drop to a D0 and be considered out of action. That will be covered in the challenge section. Now that you know what cliches are, let's use them in our character creation. Part 2. Character creation. Character creation in Reesus Epic is pretty straightforward. With this guide, your character will be ready to roll in no time. First, you will need a name for this character. I cannot give you any practical advice here. I trust you. Perhaps you have a pet or even a child with a name. Did you choose that name? If so, you have practical experience in performing this potentially anxiety-riddled task. If not, steel yourself. You can do this. The next part will be a description. Where is your character from? Does he or she like pickles? Are they holding on to a deep, dark secret involving a sordid love triangle and looking for redemption and a free clinic? Use your imagination, or the imagination of a person whose stories you can, how should I put this, borrow from discreetly and without legal complexities. Finally, to create our character, you will require 3 cliches for said character and set each to a level of D16 or beginner. Each explicitly written cliche will be at a level of at least D16, while all unwritten cliches will be considered at a D20 level. From here, we will use 5 points to lower the dice of the cliches as we see fit. There is a way to add 1 additional point to character creation for both including a dream into a cliche and including an agony in a cliche, for a total of 2 bonus character points. Normally, brand new characters cannot have cliches lower than D10, but check with your DM/GM, as maybe exceptions can be made. Note that if a cliche requires a tool, weapon, or object, the absence of that item might cause the cliche to be rendered unusable. For example, if your space cowboy has a D10 in fastest gun in the solar system, and you are rendered gunless, you will not be able to shoot your way out of the mess you found yourself in. However, your axe-loving barbarian, D10, forced into a gladiatorial arena without his trusty blade, can still rely on his bare hands, but would roll 1 die size higher, D12, until he's again properly armed. Now, if you really like dice rolling, which I'm sure you do, there is an option you can employ in character creation. You may use 1 character creation point on something called a fortune die. At the start of every session, you may roll this fortune die and collect a quantity of lucky strikes equal to the number rolled. These can be spent by any player in the party before any cliché roll to lower it by 1 die size. This die starts at a D4, but can grow throughout a campaign if a player makes steps toward his or her dream. If that action is taken, the player will roll their fortune die. If it maxes out, so for example a 4 on a D4, then the fortune die increases by 1 level, to D6, D8, and it can be increased all the way up to D30. That's a lot of luck. Part 3. Challenges. In Reesus Epic, whenever a character loses a challenge, their active cliché is increased by 1 die size. If any clichés are increased past D20, a character is considered out of action, or D0. They are defeated for the purposes of that challenge. This could mean that they become incapacitated, or sink into despair, or fall into a coma, or whatever the GM decides under the circumstances. If all of a character's clichés reach D0, the character is dead. Like, dead. Capiche? There are 3 broad categories for challenges. 1. Contest. Usually a 1-round character versus character challenge. 2. Battle. This is a multi-round character versus character situation. 3. Target. 1 round character versus environment. Examples of each would be as follows. Let's say we have two characters, Jeff and Rick. They're scrounging for food in an abandoned home. They both happen to see a plump and delicious peanut butter and jam sandwich. They are both equidistant to the sandwich. A contest would be when both characters attempt to grab the sandwich for themselves. They would use cliches appropriate to speed, cunning, or sleight of hand. Both characters roll, and whoever is lowest wins the contest. Jeff is one sandwich wealthier. Conflict over. But Rick decides to start a battle with Jeff to gain possession of the sandwich. In this case, the two rivals face off in contested roles. Remember, these actions are pulled from cliches and should be as hilariously descriptive as possible. Both parties in the battle, attacker and defender, roll using their chosen cliche. The player with the lowest result wins the round, at which time the loser expands their active cliche by 1 die size. This damage lasts for the rest of the battle and signifies that the character has been pushed a step closer to defeat. The winner decides the fate of the loser, but defeat does not necessarily mean death. It could mean being forced to sing the entirety of the final countdown because it is now stuck in your head, and that is the only way to remove the intrusive lyrics. While Jeff sings, Rick holds the sandwich in triumph. Conflict over. Again. Alas, a new wrinkle develops. While the battle was underway, a mischievous and opportunistic squirrel arrives and bides his time while the rivals wear themselves out. Seeing his chance, the squirrel leaps through the air, snatches the sandwich from the unsuspecting Rick, and lands, preparing to flee in victory. Here is where the target challenge comes into play. Rick has one roll with an appropriate cliche to stop this thieving yet adorable perpetrator. He must roll under the target number to successfully reclaim the sandwich. Target numbers follow this general scale. 18 is mundane, 15 is average, 10 is ambitious, 7 is arduous, 4 is extraordinary, and 1 is impossible. Knowing he is not very swift, Rick decides to muster all he's got and use a focused cliche. He is supremely hungry, after all. So how does that work? In the face of a big challenge, risk-loving or desperate characters may choose to focus their cliches. This may be role-played as an extraordinary effort at the cost of later injury. To stress a cliche, first, choose how many die sizes you want to focus your cliche by. Then, subtract that number of die sizes from your cliche and roll. Once it resolves, restore the cliche to normal. Then, finally, damage it by increasing the number of die sizes you focused. Note also that a cliche cannot be stressed such that its die size penalty would reduce it to an out-of-action state past D20. Focusing is legal for any kind of cliche roll, provided the GM agrees that pushing it fits the action involved. So Rick musters his knowledge of small mammal mating calls through his imprisoned in a zoology library as a youth cliche, focuses his skill from D10 to D4, and successfully stupefies the squirrel into dropping the sandwich. Conflict resolved. Part 4. Advancing your character. Character advancement occurs in one of two situations. Either the adventure session has ended, or the GM wishes to reward a player mid-adventure for exceptional role gaming. In order to do this, character advancement consists of two steps. First, staging a soliloquy, and second, the roll of fate. The first step is to perform a soliloquy. Soliloquies are Shakespearean moments when in-game time stops and the GM prompts one PC to reveal his or her soul to the table. No constraints, no interruptions. It could be an aside to an imagined audience, an impassioned cry to the brass-like sky, or a prayer of gratitude to a deity. It might involve how the PC feels about the present situation, the past up to that point, or their future hopes and dreams. Once the PC performs their soliloquy, they may advance to the role of fate. The second step is to roll in an attempt to advance your character's stats. Choose one cliché you wish to advance. Roll it. Now, the rules aren't clear as to what you roll. I'm assuming it's either the die of the cliché, or maybe it is a d20. Let's continue and you'll find out why this might be confusing. If the result is equal to or higher than the cliché's current level, decrease the cliché by one die size. So for example, if you have a d10 and you get equal to or higher than 10, you may decrease the cliché by one die size. If you only roll the die of that cliché, you can only meet it. So it's implied that you can beat it. So I would think that you could roll a higher die. Anyway, it'll be up to the discretion of the GM. Hey, no pressure on you. If it fails, not to worry. Simply roll 1d6 instead, and if it's a 1, replace a tool. If it's a 2, you find a special item. If it's a 3, you gain a feat point. If it's a 4, expand your fortune die. If it's a 5, add or change one cliché descriptor. And if it's a 6, you can add a new cliché of level D16. Well, that covers the fundamentals. You should be ready to play a game of Reesus Epic. It should also be noted that I did not cover things that can be found in the appendix, such as dreams, agonies, feats, and flaws. These are, after all, optional, but they do make the game more interesting. Thank you for making the choice to edify yourself. Be sure to listen to Fire Breathing Kittens podcast and look for an upcoming episode using this system.